Good morning, friends. Prepared Suburbanite back with you once again, and it's always good to be here. Um, I've been doing a lot of research, I think, I think that's the right word, into what's going to happen this fall. And assuming that the election goes pretty much as it stands today, where we've got Donald Trump on the Republican side and Kamala Harris on the Democrat side. Um, there's only a couple of scenarios that we need to consider. One, that Trump wins, and the second scenario is that Harris wins. And each one of those has some very unique potential characteristics that I want to discuss in a little bit of detail, at least from my perspective, as I sit here in this wonderful state of North Carolina. So I'll be back right after this. So, scenario number one is, and I discussed this on my last video, that Kamala Harris wins. She ends up somehow with over 270 electoral college votes and becomes the next president of the United States. So, what's going to happen with folks like you and me that are sitting around out here with trying to keep our lives pointed in the right direction and doing things that we enjoy doing, being involved in our community and our churches and all that? What's going to happen to us? And I think that if Harris wins, that the conservative right MAGA crowd is probably going to accept it, deal with it, try to do its best to cope with it, and start planning for 2028. I don't see that there is going to be a huge uprising of hateful sentiments. There'll be an awful lot of words that are bandied about, but I don't think there's going to be any kind of uprisings, any kind of real for real civil war. And I think we're already in kind of a cold civil war right now, with the left and the right being opposed to each other from a philosophical standpoint. But the Harris administration, I think, will be tolerated. Now, what's going to happen in the House? What's going to happen in the Senate? Not part of the conversation that or my thought process that I've had. But I'm assuming that the Republicans will maintain control of the House by a minimal amount, and that the Republicans may take the Senate. And that's a stretch. It's basically 50-50 right now, with the vice president or the president of the Senate, which is currently Kamala Harris, being the tiebreaker vote. And we've got Menendez stepping down, I think, sometime in August, based on his conviction for bribery. So that may tip things just a little bit, but I think he's put it out that far to allow the governor in his state to appoint another Democrat senator to fill out Menendez's term. And I think that's what's going to happen. So, but I think in 2024, we may pick up a couple of seats in the Senate. So the Republicans would have control in the House and in the Senate. And it may make it somewhat difficult for Kamala Harris to continue Joe Biden's radical themes of open borders and high inflation and soft on crime kind of nonsense that we've all kind of grown accustomed to without much pushback. And I suspect that'll be pretty much the same thing that we'll see if Kamala Harris does become the president in 2025. Scenario number two is that Trump wins and that he is able to amass 270 or more electoral college votes in the upcoming election. And I suspect that between the day that the final ballot count is announced and the electoral college votes are taken, from that period in time from the first part of November until December, when the electoral college actually meets and does their thing, that there will be bloodshed in the streets, that there will be riots in the streets, that there will be cities on fire, burning down. And unfortunately for the left, they kind of burn their own cities down. So you're going to have Seattle and Portland and St. Louis, places like that, that are going to be infernos because the left is so, I guess, infected with Trump derangement syndrome. They believe that he is going to be the ultimate authoritarian. They compare him to Hitler on a daily basis, and they're scared to death that their way of life is going to be radically changed. And I think they got that part right. But there will be violence, there will be death and destruction in the streets. And it's very possible that a few of the blue states, more prevalent on the West Coast, maybe one or two on the East Coast, could get together and demand certain promises, certain conditions for Trump, or they may try to withdraw or secede from the United States. And that exists as a possibility. I've seen a couple of podcasts that have discussed that in some detail. I'm not sure that the Constitution even allows that kind of stuff to happen, but I think we saw what happened in 1860, whatever, the Civil War started, that states got together and seceded from the Union, and it caused a civil war. And I suspect that that kind of a scenario is very alive and realistic to be planning for. Whether I suspect that even in the chance that the House and the Senate fall into control by the GOP, that there will be attempts to oust Donald Trump and J.D. Vance from their positions as president and vice president. Whether they'll do it using impeachment, the 25th Amendment, or whatever they're going to do, they're going to try something, whether it's aggravated lawfare, but there will be battles to be fought on that front as the riots are going on in many of the major blue cities around the country. And what can we do about that? Well, we can keep our heads screwed on straight. We can make sure that we're locked and loaded and well strapped to protect our homes and our property and ourselves. But I can't imagine that there's going to be a counter-offensive for that. It's just kind of what I'm seeing here. Now, I'd like to hear what you think. In scenario number one, Kamala Harris becomes president, what do you think's going to happen, and how do you think the right is going to, the GOP is going to react to that? And then scenario number two is, what do you think is going to happen if Donald Trump actually wins in November? Do you think that there's going to be violence and riots and cities burning and lawfare and attempts at impeachment, or maybe even other kinds of solutions that they may have in the back of their minds to get Trump out of office? I think there's an awful lot to be considered and an awful lot to be planning for in the future. We need to be ready. We need to be self-sufficient and self-securing of our homes, our loved ones, our property, and all the assets that we may actually have. And I do believe that we need to take inventories of our prepping supplies and make sure that we have enough to get through what may be coming. And it may be a very violent time, worse than what we've ever seen in the past. If the nation can actually survive it, I don't know. If Kamala Harris becomes our president, I am very concerned about the future of these United States and urge you all to be prepared. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see y'all on the next video.